Hey everyone, am I live? I think I'm live. I lost power, so just firing it back up here. Power went out. Just getting things going again. The power does go out too often here. It's annoying. Part 2, or let's call it 3.5, I guess. Damn. Damn. All right. All right. Lost power. Sorry about that. We can blame Dave Farina. All right, let's get going again here. Pangburn used Google Earth and saw how Gaza really looked. That's funny. Yeah. Okay, we're back. Professor Dave. Now I got to set up again here. I lost power. B has been destroyed. Just getting set up again. So annoying. Wait. I think that's right. All right, we'll just put that there. How annoying. Oh well. We keep on keeping on. All right. Need my Restream app open. Sorry about the power outage, folks. Sucks. I am prone to power outages here, unfortunately. Okay, and now I just need to go like this and like that and like this and like that. Need my documents, then I'm good. I wonder how many people fell for Dave's little comment that because I use sophisticated academic research AI agents, that means, and because of that thing that was going on with that person who was funding this idea of trying to poison the well with large language models with regards to Israel, that somehow that means you can dismiss all the fact checking 100%. Yikes. Yikes. That's a big yikes. Here we go. Well, just like that, we're back. If I lose power again, that's going to suck. Because it kind of flickered, so. Yes, all these videos will be edited down, yeah. Right? This is, for the most part, rhetorical hyperbole. So the destruction is, of course, exceptional. Approximately 93% of school buildings required major rehabilitation or reconstruction, and the health system was devastated. But every hospital, school, bakery, and settlement is just literally incorrect. So when you start saying things like every hospital, school, bakery, this paints a picture of a place that no longer has hospitals, schools, bakeries, villages, and any kind of remnants of a city. And that's not true.
It is true. 0 traditional schools in Gaza are operational. Every single one of the 700 schools has been bombed.
Dave changed his claim. Notice how he said traditional schools? Of a place that no longer has hospitals, schools, bakeries, villages, and any kind of remnants of a city. And that's not true.
It is true. 0 traditional schools in Gaza are operational. Every single
exceptional. Approximately 93% of school buildings required major rehabilitation or reconstruction, and the health system was devastated. But every hospital, school, bakery, and settlement is just literally incorrect. So when you start saying things like every hospital, school, bakery, this paints a picture of a place that no longer has hospitals, schools, bakeries, villages, and any kind of remnants of a city. And that's not true.
It is true. 0 traditional schools in Gaza are operational. Every single one of the 700 schools has been bombed. 92% are destroyed, and the rest are partially damaged, so they now serve as shelters.
What up, everyone? Sorry I lost connection there. The power went out. Make sure you smash that like button when you get into the room. Dave, your claim about schools in your original video, let me pull it up. Let's see. The Israeli public opinion incitement, collective claims. Destruction. It should be in here. Ooh, what happened here? There we go. Okay, I'm just looking for this particular claim. I can't find that. Right, every hospital, the claim was every hospital, every school, every bakery, every city demolished. How come I can't find that one? 157. Oh, it should be in here. Sorry for the delay, everybody. Here we go. This was a claim by Dave in the original video. There we go. So the claim by Dave was every hospital, every school, every bakery, every city demolished. That's what I was responding to in the video. Let's see if Dave actually was responding to. I don't think he actually played what I was responding to.
A pure apocalyptic wasteland, so everyone can see that Gaza is totally uninhabitable, therefore genocide? No, just gonna hide behind this fake semantic rigor? Got it.
There was another claim. Every hospital, school, bakery, village, and city has been destroyed. This is, for the most part, rhetorical hyperbole. So the destruction is, of course, exceptional. Approximately 93% of school buildings required major rehabilitation or reconstruction, and the health system was devastated. But every hospital, school, bakery, and settlement is just literally incorrect. So when you start saying things like every hospital, school, bakery, this paints a picture of a place that no longer has hospitals, schools, bakeries, villages, and any kind of remnants of a city. And that's not true.
It is true. 0 traditional schools in Gaza are operational. Every single one of the 7.
That's weird that Dave picked it up there, because his original claim was every hospital, every school, every bakery, every city demolished. And then the correction here is that the destruction is catastrophic. Roughly 93% of school buildings require major rehabilitation or reconstruction, and the health system was devastated. But, quote, every hospital, school, bakery, and city is literally false with regards to them being demolished. Some facilities remained partially functional, and damaged is not identical to demolished. So, So 97% of schools were not demonstrated to be destroyed. It establishes 97% sustained some level of damage. That's what the graphic shows. It also does not show 0 schools were operational. Contemporaneous OCHA/Palestinian Ministry of Education reporting specifically identified 28 operational government schools alongside hundreds of temporary learning spaces. Because Dave then says traditional schools here. I'm just trying to understand why he is changing his use of language. Exceptional. Approximately 93% of school buildings required major rehabilitation or reconstruction, and the health system was devastated. But every hospital, school, bakery, and settlement is just literally incorrect. So when you start saying things like every hospital, school, bakery, this paints a picture of a place that no longer has hospitals, schools, bakeries, villages, and any kind of remnants of a city. And that's not true.
It is true. 0 traditional schools in Gaza are operational.
Contemporaneous so if Dave moves rhetorically from 97% damaged or destroyed to 97% destroyed, or the formal education system has largely collapsed to literally 0 traditional schools are operational, those are materially stronger claims than his cited evidence supports. So literally 0 traditional schools are operational. Let's look at that a little further. This is a new graphic. Grab that. We'll take a look at this graphic. But just for the record, Dave's claim from his original video, again, was that every hospital, every school, every bakery, every city demolished. That's not true. It's a false universal. Damaged is not demolished. Paints a much different picture. I was giving the analogy, hey, Dave, sorry, when I was out using your car, I damaged your vehicle. Oh, so it's a write-off? It's demolished? No. I just damaged it. When I was parking, I bumped into another vehicle and it put a little dent in it. But I don't understand. Isn't it just nitpicking to draw lines between demolished and damaged? No, it's not. They mean completely different things. So The screenshot Dave provided there is built around real UN statistics, but it overstates what those statistics establish in several important ways. We should not use it as written. There are things that are materially misleading. The 97% and 91.8% numbers are real. The claims that, quote, zero traditional schools are operational, 91.8% are completely non-functional, and essentially all surviving buildings are merely shelters, are not faithful descriptions of the underlying evidence. So let's go through the claims. The quote that Dave just said, zero traditional schools are operational, is false and overstated as a general or current claim. OCHA reported 28 government schools operational in October 2025. By July 2026, it was piloting an accelerated learning program in 6 schools. So Dave's just wrong about that. He's spreading more misinformation. Entire formal education system has been completely paralyzed, is a claim. That could be broadly true regarding sustained formal schooling, but rhetorically stronger than the source. UNICEF says all/virtually all Gaza school-age children lacked sustained access to formal in-person education. That does not mean literally no schools or learning activities operated. Also, there's a couple more things overstated, overgeneralized. Those 518 are, quote, completely non-functional. That would be overstated. That is not what the source says. It says they require reconstruction or major rehabilitation to be functional again. Remaining schools were all converted into shelters. That's overgeneralized / false. Many schools were shelters, but not every school outside of 91.8% category was simply a shelter.
Every single one of the 700 schools has been bombed.
We're going to check that.
92% are destroyed, and the rest are partially damaged, so they now serve as shelters.
So we already went through those claims, but I want to look at the 700 schools has been bombed claim.
0 hospitals in Gaza are fully functional. Every single one.
So Dave's claim every one of the 700 schools in Gaza has been bombed. We should rate this as false and materially exaggerated. What the UN actually measured. So let's get the data right here. There are 2 different denominators that routinely get confused. About 815 administrative schools in Gaza and 564 physical school buildings, because multiple schools can operate in the same building / shifts. UNICEF's year-end 2025 report says 95.5% of Gaza's 815 schools were damaged or destroyed. That is extremely high, but it is still not 100%, and damaged or destroyed does not mean bombed. For the physical buildings, the education clusters July 2025 satellite assessments found 432 school buildings suffered a direct hit. Direct hit or sufficiently damaged to require major rehabilitation. That would be 518 schools. So that would combine the direct hit category and sufficiently damaged to require major rehabilitation schools. Some level of damage, including likely damaged, 97%. So yeah, no, the direct hit number, every one, Dave says, of the 700 schools has been bombed. Yeah, we should rate that as false and materially exaggerated. The UN explicitly said 432 of 564, not 564 of 564, has been classified as a direct hit. And later assessments based on October 11th, 2025 imagery raised the number of directly hit buildings to 459 of 564, or roughly 81%. Yeah, every school was bombed is just false and misleading. So what is not supported? Every school was bombed. 100% were directly hit. 97% damaged means 97% bombed. Every damaged school was intentionally targeted. Every damaged school was destroyed. All of those claims are false. Those aren't supported. UN data do not show that every one of Gaza schools was bombed. The latest granular education cluster assessment found 459 of 564 school buildings classified as directly hit. Approximately 93% were directly hit or damaged enough to require major rehabilitation. So whatever source Dave is trusting, like with this piece of material he's providing, I don't, does it say on there? Whatever is compiling this information, they're citing good sources, but whatever's compiling the information is not compiling the information in a factual way. They are distorting it. They are overestimating it. They're overstating it. They are making it materially misleading. That's a problem. Quick bathroom break. I really hope I don't lose power again. Make sure you smash that like button. Welcome back, everybody. This is 3.5. Fact checking Professor Dave. Hit piece on me 3.5. All right. For anyone keeping score in the comment section in the chat, how many people have actually challenged the conclusions of my fact check? How many people have been pointing out errors in my fact checking? Have we seen much of that?
One of the 36 hospitals has been bombed. About half are able to do anything whatsoever, which is usually nothing more than amputating limbs without.
I got to go back a moment here. Sorry. There's just a lot of claims compressed into this. Exceptional. Section. Approximately 93% of schools.
0 traditional schools in Gaza are operational.
That's false.
Every single one of the 700 schools has been bombed.
False.
92% are destroyed, and the rest are partially damaged, so they now serve as shelters.
We sorted through all of that misinformation.
0 hospitals in Gaza are fully functional.
That might be true with regards to full functionality. Dave's being much more careful with his claims this video, I think, than the first one. Seems like this might be from the same website he's getting a lot of this information. It's like he's not reading the primary sources. And he's just believing like this summary, and whoever's making these summaries keeps getting these things wrong. I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to make sure I mean, I don't really need to dispute the language of zero hospitals in Gaza are fully functional. Like, it's hard to dispute that. If you take that to mean zero hospitals are functioning, that would be false. There is no hospital care whatsoever. That would be false. Every hospital has been destroyed. That would be false. No hospital can provide any service. That would be false. Oh, I'm going to let X know. Making sure everyone has access to this. Boom. 3.5. Okay. So this graphic says remaining hospitals are completely closed. That's broadly true, but oversimplified. Non-functional hospitals are not providing normal hospital service, but reasons include damage, supply shortages, security, access restrictions, and evacuation/hostility conditions, not merely structural destruction. This quote, around 58% of primary healthcare centers are operational. It's not supported by the mid 2026 WHO figures we can verify. Okay. All right. Let's keep pushing forward.
Every single one of the 36 hospitals has been bombed.
I believe that's misinformation as well, but I'm going to check that.
About half are able to do anything whatsoever, which is usually nothing more than amputating limbs without anesthetic. Every
So Dave's exact claim is every one of Gaza's 36 hospitals has been bombed. We should state that this is overstated, not established by the best available WHO data. The strongest current WHO finding is slightly different, of course. All 36 hospitals have sustained damage. That does not mean that all 36 hospitals have been bombed. Do we understand the difference between things being bombed or damaged? Oh, Dave, your car just got bombed. Oh, so you're saying there's some damage? No, it got bombed. Yeah, it's different concepts, right? Damage slash destroyed, different. Bombed, damaged, destroyed. Difference between those concepts. Dave just said most hospitals are mostly amputating limbs without anesthetic. That's false material exaggeration. Let's double check that claim.
Zero traditional schools in Gaza are operational. Every single one of the 700 schools has been bombed. 92% are
Wrong.
destroyed, and the rest are partially damaged, so they now serve as shelters. Zero hospitals in Gaza are fully functional. Every single
That's supported. Fully functional is a pretty high standard. I wonder how many fully functional hospitals there are in Canada. Fully functional can mean many different things.
one of the 36 hospitals has been bombed. About half are able to do anything
Nope.
whatsoever, which is usually nothing more than amputating limbs without anesthetic.
Usually nothing more than amputating limbs without anesthetic. Gaza has suffered thousands of conflict-related amputations, and severe shortages of anesthetics and pain medication have forced doctors to, on documented occasions, to perform amputations and other painful procedures without adequate anesthesia. That is, of course, horrifying and supported. There's no evidence supporting, most hospitals are mostly amputating. So the way Dave framed this is just, again, false as worded, material exaggeration.
Every city has been destroyed. Gaza City, Khan Yunis, and Rafah are in complete ruins. The destruction is worse than if a nuclear bomb had been detonated. Literally.
By the way, everyone, just a reminder, the people who are the real problems are the fact checkers. So the claim was the destruction in Gaza is worse than if a nuclear bomb had gone off or detonated. It's not a well-defined factual claim, potentially misleading. If Dave means a Hiroshima-sized bomb, the comparison gets interesting. There are two different senses in which people make this comparison. Cumulative explosion energy, a 2026 UN Special Rapporteur report states that more than 200,000 tons of explosives were dropped on Gaza over almost 2 years, and describes that as roughly the energy equivalent of 13 Hiroshima-type bombs. If that underlying estimate is accepted, then the cumulative nominal explosive energy used over 2 years exceeded the yield of one Hiroshima bomb. That is a defensible statement. But it does not mean Gaza experienced the physical effect of 13 nuclear detonations. Conventional bombs were distributed across hundreds of square kilometers, used over approximately 2 years, delivered in many different sizes, detonated at different locations and depths, supplemented by artillery and demolitions. Even a scientific analysis discusses the Gaza/Hiroshima analogy, specifically cautions that simply comparing tonnage is problematic because the damage mechanisms are fundamentally different. So 20 kiloton accumulated conventional explosive energy is not equal to 20 kiloton nuclear explosion. That would be a major physics error. Hiroshima was actually more severe proportionally. This is particularly useful for fact-checking Dave's wording. The latest comprehensive UNOSAT assessment for Gaza, based on October 11th, 2025 imagery, found 81% of structures affected, 464 destroyed, 17,116 severely damaged, 33,857 moderately damaged, and 23,836 possibly damaged. Since the affected 198,000 structures represents about 81% of the total inventory, Gaza had roughly 245,000 structures in the data set. So the share classified specifically as destroyed was approximately 50%. But compared to Hiroshima city's historical assessment reports 76,327 buildings total, 47,969 totally demolished and burned, 3,818 totally demolished, another 18,107 half demolished. That means roughly 68% of Hiroshima's buildings were totally demolished / burned or totally demolished, and about 91.9% suffered catastrophic damage overall. Little frozen here. Man. Oh, I got to turn my computer fan back on. Get that fan cooking here. Let's see. So, Dave, the destruction is worse than if a nuclear bomb had been detonated. It's ambiguous, unsubstantiated, as stated. There is a real factual basis behind the analogy. Gaza has suffered extraordinary destruction. UNOSAT estimated 81% of structures affected by October 2025. More than 123,000 structures were classified or destroyed. So the best corrected formulation is Gaza's cumulative destruction is extraordinarily extensive. More than 123,000 structures were classified as destroyed by October 2025. And some estimates put the cumulative conventional explosive energy used over the war at many times the yield of the Hiroshima bomb. But equating cumulative conventional bombardment with a nuclear detonation is technically misleading because nuclear and conventional weapons produce radically different damage patterns, time profiles, thermal effects, and radiation. Thank you so much for the super chat. And of course, I will respond to all super chats. Someone says, "What is wrong with you? Israel's actions are shameful, you clown." Yeah, there are a lot of acts from Israel at this point that I find to be shameful. I don't like the what has happened with regards to starvation and malnutrition. And I think there are moments in the history of this conflict that Israel has mishandled that. I also think there is good evidence of war crimes, but I don't think I've seen good evidence that a that genocidal intent has been proven. The ICJ will eventually make their determination once they've evaluated all the evidence, including Israel's evidence and their counter evidence, which we have not heard yet. So, what's wrong with me? I mean, if you've paid attention to any of my work, I have pointed out where I don't like what I'm hearing from Israel, where I about Israel's actions, about where I disagree with some of the misinformation that I'm hearing with regards to Israel seemingly trying to protect the misinformation, seemingly trying to protect Israel. So I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy about the level of destruction. I think proportionality is going to be something that's going to be strongly pointed to with regards to war crimes. Disproportionate amount of damage is not really going to get you much further in the genocidal intent conversation. That's not going to prove genocidal intent, the proportionality argument, but the damage does seem disproportionate compared to Israel's stated mission and goals to hunt down Hamas, hold them accountable for October 7th. It seems disproportionate. So, yeah, you can call me a clown all you want, but what I'm interested in is fact checking the information. I mean, Dave's from like an epistemic perspective, Dave is the one who engaged in clownish epistemic standards in his first video that I fact check of Destiny Loves Genocide. He made 85 non-factual claims, false claims, unsupported and misleading / overstated. If you want to take a look at that, you can find that information at pang-burn.com/analysis. There's also anti-Semitism, a fair amount of it. About 6.1% of the video is anti-Semitism. I really appreciate the super chat, though. You don't like, thank you again for the super chat. You don't like the starvation? I said, I believe I said I don't like what Israel has done with relation to starvation and malnutrition and things like this. It's not all on them, but there have been certain stages where food has been shut down, and part of the reason was because of. Oh, let me give my boy a kiss quick. Um, Yeah, I think I read through the information again today, and it's clear that there was even a stage of famine. I believe it was August 2025. Based on what we read today, there's been a significant amount of malnutrition. There's been deaths from malnutrition, some starvation deaths as well. And yeah, I think that fact is absolutely disgustingly awful. But I'm talking about how Israel has handled the aid to Gaza. And I'm not sure that I don't like that they, at certain points, shut down food, water, electricity, these kinds of things. And these things might very likely be determined to be um, war crimes. Someone says, "You are a grade A idiot." Is that you, Dave? That really sounds like you, Dave. If we read it in Dave's voice, you don't like the starvation? You are a grade A idiot. But we've gone through all the information. There's an incredible amount of misinformation that people who I guess would describe themselves as pro-Palestine or anti-Israel are believing and spreading around the internet. There's a ton of it. I'm not saying there isn't uh, Israel pro-Israel misinformation as well, but it's rampant, and it's not nitpicking. Look at my report on Dave's video. Just look at it. I'm going to keep bringing it up. People can't hide from it. The data is there. It's clear. All of these things I'm scrolling through here, all of these claims are misinformation. All of them. All of those claims are misinformation. There's 85 of them in Dave's video.
All of this is what I conveyed very clearly in my video with the help of visual aids, which he is avoiding entirely so he can play a desperate semantic game with the train.
Dave, you're misleading your audience. You already know that this wasn't me going through and watching your video. That's not what this particular video is. You're misleading your audience. And you demonstrated that you know I did the full lengthy walkthroughs of your videos, which include links to the actual final version 2 report. And if you go and let me just double check this. I believe if you go to the video that Dave is looking at here, encourage everyone on YouTube to, if you look at the pinned comment, it says all data now available here at pang-burn.com/analysis, or is it in the description? Oh, the description doesn't have the link, but it's in the pinned comment. But Dave, you've already showed that you know I did the full analysis videos, but you chose to look at the transcript fact check. You didn't look at the data that was collected through the full analysis videos. Why did you do that? You knew they were there. All of the full analysis videos, yeah, so lead to the data. All data now available here. Look in the description, all data now available here. I was releasing all the data on X as well, which you've taken some screenshots from my X account. So I have good reason to believe that you knew about the extensive report that I created. And now I don't know if you address it later on in the video, but I don't think you do. I don't think you do. And I think you're misleading your audience by doing that. And you're kind of like misleading yourself.
Transcript.
The claim Israeli forces have deliberately shot or sniped Palestinian children. So there are documented cases of this. I think it's more clear to say that there are documented cases where this has occurred. And I also think it's responsible to like, also like mention that this is disputed. That and the universal wording. I don't have too much of an issue with that. Like, if it is in fact the case that Israeli forces have deliberately shot or sniped Palestinian children, like for me as a thinker, I want to understand the context of what happened there, how it was dealt with. Was this supported by, those in power, by the military itself? I would assume it wasn't. But that's one I want to further investigate. I'm going to make a little mark there.
Yeah, Israeli snipers shoot Palestinian children in the head all the time. But hey,
it's not all the time, Dave. This is the kind of language we were dealing with from the other video. Why wouldn't you just say there have been documented cases of children being shot in the head by sniper rounds? Because there are documented cases of that. But when you say all the time, that's a dishonest framing. It's not all the time. There are actual cases of this happening. It's not all the time.
It's disputed by Israel, which is lying literally always. And he thinks that if it's
you can't just say literally always
really happening, it's condemned by the higher ups.
Also, do I need to mention again? I wish Dave would have had the cojones to deal with my actual in-depth fact checking of his actual videos, going through all of them. I'm not saying he needs to compile all 30 or 40 hours or whatever it ended up being into his video, but all of that from that long process is all exists in one easy to understand document. He's cherry picking the first transcript fact check, which is nowhere close to the level of rigor the report has after all of the extensive work was put in.
Obviously, the ones who are constantly talking about how all Palestinian children are terrorists that should be murdered.
No, only 3 of those slides actually can honestly be interpreted that way. Doesn't mean that's what is actually being meant by the speaker, but 3 of those can honestly be interpreted that way, not the other 4. We already went through this earlier in this video. I'm not going to do it again.
Honest take there.
I think it's important to, first of all,
here's Don Don's moment. I was wondering when this was going to pop up. Let me get Don Don's video ready, because Don Don made a response to this. Don. Let me get this queued up here. Okay. This is Don Don's video. Don Don is my director of production at Pangburn. We just did the West Coast anti-Trump debate tour together. We had a lot of fun. Don Don will be joining me in Vancouver and for all foreseeable events that he can possibly make it out to. So make sure you guys go and check out Don Don's channel. It's one of our many Pangburn Universe channels. But this video has popped off for him, which is great. So let's see.
I was very shocked by Dave's video because it felt to me a lot more like the videos he debunks than the video that he makes, with like Instagram clippings and sources from like TikTok posts, and that seems very counter to what Dave usually creates.
Hey, look, an idiot caller is regurgitating the dumb shit Destiny said.
Dave, you are so fucking rude. It's unbelievable. Do you treat people like this, like outside of your video making? If you do, you should become a better man. Because you sound like a rude, a rude individual when you treat people that way.
Whining about which social media platform I sourced videos from isn't an argument, and nobody I debunk is playing Instagram videos. They spew a script of lies that I debunk. Normally, I do that with primary scientific literature. This isn't science. You want to hear Israeli officials expressing genocidal intent? I show clips of them expressing genocidal intent. It does.
Need to screenshot that. Let's see if he's done with Don Don.
Does not fucking matter where those clips are posted. Get your head out of your ass.
You know, you've heard a lot from Hassan. How does this kind of rhetoric make you feel?
I think I feel like what Black people felt like in like 2014 during the BLM movement.
Okay.
Basically, like when they say, no, I don't hate Black people. I just hate, thug Black culture. Or it's not like anyone they don't hate Blacks. I just hate anyone who supports BLM. All right. Like this is what I hear. I hear a way, it's the same anti-Semitic tropes. Jews want to kill children. Jews control our governments. Jews take over. Jews are a small minority that's conniving behind the scenes. Jews are manipulating our media. This is what I'm hearing, but instead of the word Jew, he's using the word Zionist. And he might not be aware that he's being anti-Semitic, but I see and hear the anti-Semitism like a Black person can hear something like, "Oh, it's BLM. People who support BLM are racist. People who support BLM are lazy. People who support BLM are part of a thug culture. They're just criminals. They just want to get away with crimes. They're looters." Right? This is the type of language you generally would hear against Black people.
Israel is killing children. Israel does have enormous influence in our government. Israel is manipulating global media to a profound degree. I proved
manipulating media to a profound degree, that has not been demonstrated. Manipulating media to a profound degree has not been demonstrated by you, Dave. We've already been through this so many times. It's all going to be in the final report, by the way. Some of these things that we've adjudicated like a billion times, we don't have to do it right now as we're trying to get through this video.
all of that in my video, and I used the correct language, Zionists, because that's the political ideology that Israel's activity is based on, which is not specifically representative of the global Jewish community.
Anti-Zionism is
This jackass is just doing the exact thing I debunked in my video of equating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, so he either didn't listen to a fucking word I said, or he's doubling down on the exact propaganda I debunked because he has nothing else to say.
So, Dave, I'm going to throw the example out there again because I think you need to hear it. If you ever watch this, or if any of your, any people who think you are righteous in what you're doing here come across this, you realize that Just because you say Zionism or Zionist doesn't mean you are safe from being labeled anti-Semitic in what you're saying. The clear example I like to point to is if you're in New York City and you're out there trying to find someone who looks Jewish, and then you walk up to that person and you say, hey, you know what? I wish Hitler and the Nazis would have gotten more of you Zionists during World War II. That's anti-Semitism. It doesn't matter that you frame it as Zionists. Just like we went through the problematic anti-Semitic structures you build in the original video that exist in the report. By the way, everyone, you can read the entire report at pang-burn.com/analysis. Just because you frame it as being anti-Zionist or anti-Israel doesn't mean you aren't being anti-Semitic. Let's take a look at Don Don's video. Looks like Don Don's in the chat. What up, Don Don? Yeah.
Hi, Dave. So I was that caller on the Penguin video, the one you simply dismissed with, that's anti-Semitic reasoning. I've had some time to think about what I actually wanted to say, so I'm going to say it properly here. I'm going to break this down into 3 points, and I think they're worth actual engagement, not another non-answer. So here's the claim in full, and I want to be precise about it. Prejudice does not require naming the target group. This isn't some new academic framing. It's just how coded language has always worked historically. Nobody ran 20th century campaigns on, we hate black people. They ran on law and order, welfare queens, urban crime. Everybody understood what was being said. The absence of the explicit word didn't make the rhetoric neutral, it simply made it effective because it let people participate without ever saying the quiet part out loud. And the worst case, that's exactly the function it served. It gave people permission to indulge their more capricious, uglier instincts while feeling entirely guilt-free about it. Nobody has to admit to themselves that they're really doing it. The label never gets spoken. And anti-Semitism has been the exact same thing throughout history. Things like cosmopolitan elites, international bankers. These were doing anti-Semitic work for over a century before anyone needed to say the word Jew out loud. The mechanism was never a slur. It was the structure, a small, disloyal group secretly pulling strings behind media, finance, and government for its own benefit. And that structure works on an audience whether or not the speaker ever uses the ethnic label, and whether or not the speaker personally, consciously believes anything hateful. And this isn't a special standard I'm inventing for this topic. It is the same standard we use everywhere else. It's how we know Donald Trump holds animus towards Mexicans. He didn't need to say a slur. He talked about it. Rapists, criminals, they're not sending their best. Nobody serious argues that because he avoided the explicit ethnic label, the rhetoric gets a pass. We look at the structure and the content underneath the words, not just whether or not a group's name gets said out loud. That's the standard. I'm just asking you to apply it consistently to yourself as well. So when you say, I said Zionist, not Jewish, get a grip, that phrase by itself has never been a sufficient defense for any coded rhetoric in history, in any context ever, and you have to look at the structure and the content underneath it. Now, I'm not just going to just assert this and expect you to trust me. There is a detailed, independently produced forensic breakdown of your transcript. Travis did it on his video, and it's timestamped line by line, checked against 3 different anti-Semitism frameworks. I'll link it down below, and here's what it found in your own words. Larry Ellis, a Zionist billionaire who purchased TikTok to suppress Palestinian content. The ownership claim is factually false. TikTok is a U.S. multi-investor joint venture. Ellison didn't personally buy it, but separate from the factual error, the shape of the claim, right? You have a Zionist individual secretly seizing a platform to control what young people are allowed to see. This is Textbook hidden media control rhetoric. When you say things like Paramount, Warner, CBS, CNN, HBO are all under one entity owned by Larry Ellison, and your words saying Zionists control the vast majority of mainstream media outlets is not a conspiracy theory, is a statement of fact, ultra factually false as stated, and flagged independently by this report as a classic hidden control structure. You argue Ashkenazi Jews aren't really Semites and are largely European, and that Israel restricts ancestry testing specifically to hide that fact from its own citizen. Really, this is just genetic delegitimization, and it's also just scientifically wrong. The actual population genetics shows substantial Levantine ancestry in Ashkenazi populations, not a purely European one. Members of Congress supporting a defense bill you say are guilty of treason as a part of a hostile takeover, divided loyalty language is also a very old anti-Semitic trope. Now, none of that required you to say, I hate Jews. That's the entire point I was making at the call, and you skipped past it. You can be completely sincere that you're only criticizing a state or an ideology and still be running arguments that are structurally identical to much older ones. Hidden control of the media, hidden control of the government, collective guilt, and even the racial legitimacy of a people to exist where they live. The trope doesn't check your intentions before it lands on the audience. I want to be really clear about one thing, because I know how this gets twisted both directions. This is not me saying the humanitarian catastrophe in your video isn't real. It is. The same document that flags the rhetorical problems that Travis made also affirms the extensive, well-documented suffering, displacement, and killing of innocent Palestinian people and children. That suffering is real, and it's not in dispute here. But you don't get to use the suffering of innocent Palestinian people as a way to wave off legitimate and coherent scrutiny of your rhetoric. That's exactly what you did. The response to a structural critique was to invoke the moral weight of the atrocity itself, as if raising the question was somehow a betrayal of the victims. It isn't. The two claims are separate. One does not cancel the other one out. So that's it. 3 points. Coded prejudice, doesn't need a slur. Your video runs that structure repeatedly and demonstrably. And the real suffering in Gaza doesn't get to be used as a shield against fair scrutiny. And I just like an actual answer to this. Not a not answer. An actual answer where you deal with the content of what I said, not just your weird way of just dismissing it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Don Prager. Make sure you guys go and subscribe to Don. Man, you nailed it, Don. I love the video. My only critique is next time you film, make sure the sex toys aren't showing in the background. Nah, I'm kidding. There was no sex toys in the background. I'm just trying to get more viewers to go over there. Benjamin says, I don't know if Don is still here, but this video is a bunch of nothing. You are waving away all of the criticism of the IDF. When did he do that? When did he do that? And Israeli government by putting the label anti-Semitic. When did he do that? Did you watch the video? You're not listening. Oh my. Oh my. Now where are we at? The next claim, the vast Hamas command center alleged beneath Al-Shifa did not exist. So one more time, the vast Hamas command center alleged beneath Al-Shifa did not exist. This is partly correct. Partly correct. Evidence supported some Hamas military use of the hospital complex, including weapons, tunnels, hostages, or command activity. However, initial Israeli depictions of a vast central head. I mean, I know Don's Jewish, but I don't think he was speaking Hebrew in that video. You should be able to understand what he was saying. Quarters were not substantiated at the scale originally suggested. So again, partly correct, half truth here.
No, it's a full truth. Israel planted a couple guns and pointed
Dave, it hasn't been demonstrated that Israel planted a couple guns. Where's your evidence? You're still perpetuating this myth. No, Israel did plant a but you haven't demonstrated it.
at a random tunnel. That's not evidence of anything, and it sure as fuck does not substantiate the ridiculous CGI video depicting a massive.
That's what I said at the beginning. Did you not hear what I was saying? That has not been substantiated. And if you read my report or actually responded to my full analysis videos, this was not a full analysis video that you're responding to. This is just a transcript fact check. You showed that you knew where the full analysis videos were at the beginning of this video.
High-tech command center that Israel concocted out of thin fucking air. This is just another example of him pretending to take the middle ground when he's really just using fake evidence presented by Israel and regurgitating.
How do you know it's fake evidence that has not been demonstrated? What do you have access to, Dave, that you can, if you can show me the positive evidence, I will believe you. But there is no positive evidence that Israel planted that gun that I am aware of.
By the AI model he's using to distort reality.
The claim Israel knew the he doesn't know anything about the AI model I am using. He's already demonstrated that time and time again. He's bringing up elementary, like first day on the internet type things. Well, you better watch out for this. Yeah, man. Anyone who's educated in how to use these tools properly in an academic way already knows that. Detailed October 7 attack was coming and deliberately allowed it. One more time. Israel knew the detailed October 7 attack was coming and deliberately allowed it. This is completely unsupported. There is compelling evidence of intelligence and preparedness failures, ignored warnings, and mistaken assessments. That is not evidence that Israeli leaders intentionally permitted the attack.
Well, I put forward some very peculiar testimony from Israeli soldiers that would seem to support what I said. If you want to pretend it's completely unsupported, then you'd better offer some kind.
Pretend it's completely unsupported? Dave, are you about to shift the burden of proof based on the soldier video that you provided, the so-called soldier video that you provided? That soldier video, based on my memory, was saying the guy thought it was weird. And we haven't even verified if this is true, but the guy said he thought it was weird when he was told that this particular area that he would normally patrol, that patrol was off. This was his claim. That doesn't mean, like, what you're doing is the Candace Owens conspiratorial line drawing. You see an anomaly here, and you think you've drawn a causal line to your conspiracy theory that Israel knew that October 7th was going to happen. It's an insane conspiracy theory. It really is. Hasn't been substantiated or demonstrated at all.
Kind of explanation for that testimony, dickhead.
An explanation for that testimony? Let's look at the testimony. Dickhead. Dave, you're not a 14-year-old boy. I think you should stop calling people dickheads. What was the video? If I can find it. Ooh, I think I found it. Did I find it? Ooh. No, I need the other soldier video. Oh, that one was about a different issue. Let's just look at it again. Going to go right here. Quick bathroom break. Doing well, everyone. We're cooking on this. Sorry, the Mario Kart was down. I don't know. I think when I have too many windows open, it just like stops the Mario Kart video. I don't know why. All right. So this is just an unsupported inference by Dave. So we're talking about a sheet writ. So what sheet writ actually testified? This is the Israeli soldier. Sheet writ told Israel's Channel 7, Aratz Shiva, that at approximately 5:20 a.m., about 70 minutes before the rocket barrage began, he heard his deputy battalion commander relay an unusual message along the lines of, "I don't know why, but an order was issued that there are no patrols at the fence until 9 in the morning." That testimony is authentic. It deserves investigation. But notice something extremely important. The commander reportedly says, quote, "I don't know why." Sheetrit does not testify, quote, "We were told Hamas was about to attack. We were told to let Hamas through. Our commander told us the government knew. Netanyahu ordered us to stand down. We were told not to defend the border." Those propositions are being inferred from the patrol order. Sheetrit himself does not make Dave's inference. This is particularly damaging to an attempt to present the clip as proof. When the interviewer asked whether this order explained why soldiers weren't awake/ready, Sheetrit explicitly declined to speculate. He said that his own mortar platoon was in fact put on dawn alert and was awake. He said other patrol units might have been allowed to sleep, but added, "I don't know. I don't want to say something for nothing," he said. That is a very different picture from, quote, "the IDF was ordered to stand down." Sheetrit himself was much more cautious. He was also given a potential operational explanation. This is perhaps the most commonly omitted part of that clip. Sheetrit said he later asked military personnel why there had been no fence patrol. According to him, he was told there had been a threat involving anti-tank fire, ATGM, activity. Sheetrit didn't know whether that explanation was correct and remained skeptical, but he acknowledged it as the explanation he had been given. So there are at least two competing hypotheses. Hypothesis one, deliberate stand down. Someone knew Hamas would attack and removed patrols to facilitate it. Hypothesis two, tactical patrol restriction. Command restricted patrols immediately beside the fence because of a perceived anti-tank threat. The testimony by itself cannot distinguish between those explanations. That is precisely why treating it as establishing foreknowledge is methodologically unsound. Hopefully Dave can follow that logic. Even more importantly, troops at Pega were out operating at 5:30. This is a major piece of context. Israel's public broadcaster Khan reconstructed the Pega battle minute by minute. It reports 5:30 morning patrol as part of the routine, quote, dawn readiness procedure. The deputy company commander and another soldier left Pega in a David vehicle to open/check the route. They traveled toward another nearby military position. Then, just let me adjust something here. Then at 6 a.m., 0600 hours, another vehicle returned to the Pega outpost to replace one of the soldiers. And shortly after 6:20 a.m., personnel were already moving back toward the outpost in an armored vehicle. Ynet independently reports that at dawn, a soldier was on patrol in a Jeep outside the Pega base when the rocket barrage started. That doesn't necessarily contradict Sheetrit. The restriction may specifically have applied to patrolling directly along the Gaza fence, rather than every patrol/activity in the sector. But it absolutely undermines the viral framing, quote, the soldiers were all ordered to stand down and do nothing. That isn't what happened. What Israel actually knew that night is much more complicated. Here's where Dave might have a legitimate point. Israeli intelligence did detect disturbing indications during the night of October 6th and 7th. The IDF's later investigation found at least 5 unusual indicators of Hamas activity, including Hamas operatives activating Israeli SIM cards. The problem was that intelligence officials misinterpreted the indicators. The IDF investigation concluded not one officer interpreted the signs as indicating that the massive attack was imminent. It further found that even if all available intelligence had been properly integrated, officials might have raised readiness for a limited Hamas attack, but still not understand that an invasion on the scale of October 7th was coming. That's an extraordinarily serious intelligence failure. But failing to correctly interpret warning signs is not the same proposition as knowing the attack was going to happen and allowing it. Shin Bet admits something was happening. The Shin Bet investigation makes the distinction even clearer. Its review acknowledged that warning signs were detected during the night, including activation of 45 Israeli SIM cards used by Hamas operatives. The agency ultimately admitted it failed to provide warning of Hamas's wide-scale assault. A small team of elite Shin Bet police personnel was actually sent toward the Gaza border before the attack, precisely because some degree of concern existed. That's difficult to reconcile with the simplistic theory they knew the attack was coming and intentionally ordered everybody away. If anything, the documentary record shows an inconsistent response. Warning indicators led to some concern, led to some limited precautionary actions, led to catastrophic underestimation of the scale of the threat. There is stronger evidence that Israel knew Hamas had such an attack plan. This needs to be separated from knowing when Hamas would execute it. Israel possessed the Hamas document known as Jericho Wall more than a year before October 7th. It described remarkably similar elements: mass rocket fire, disabling surveillance, breaching the border, mass infiltration, attacking military installations and communities. The document did not contain the date of the attack. Israeli intelligence reportedly dismissed the plan as aspirational or beyond Hamas's actual capabilities. So this proposition is defensible. If Dave was to say, Israeli intelligence knew Hamas had developed plans for a mass cross-border invasion resembling what ultimately occurred. But that's different from Israel knew Hamas was going to execute the plan at 6:30 a.m. on October 7th. So Israeli leadership knew the massive October 7th assault was about to happen and deliberately permitted it. That just has not been established. I don't know what to tell you, Dave.
Just shouting conspiracy theory isn't an argument. In the real world, we examine all the data and arrive at the conclusion that best fits the data,
We've already gone through that, Dave. All of the evidence we just went through comes to the conclusion that your idea that this shows Israel knew about that October 7th was going to happen is unsupported, misleading, conspiratorial. That's when looking at all the data. So there was a patrol, just for the record, near the Gaza fence that was held back because commanders feared an anti-tank guided missile, ATGM, attack, for anyone that's listening.
including the data that doesn't fit the narrative you want to be true.
Wrong. There isn't a narrative I want to be true. I want to actually understand the facts. So I'm including all the evidence, not just your cherry-picked video of a soldier saying something that I think is probably in line with the narrative you want to be true, that Israel knew this was going to happen. They wanted it to happen anyway so that they could have a reason to go to war with Hamas and go into Gaza and all of these other things that you claimed in the first initial video. So I think that's massive amounts of projection from Dave onto me.
So offer your explanation like an adult, or admit that you can't and don't even.
The explanations exist. The fact checking exists, Dave. You need to stop looking at this not full analysis video. You deliberately are looking at the transcript fact check, but you're not looking at the meticulous information that I went through for 30 plus hours on my videos through your video, and then produce the actual report at pang-burn.com/analysis that I have every good reason to believe that you know exists, but you have omitted it seemingly from this entire video. And I mean, any of your audience that's truly honest and truly wants to know what my fact checking showed, they will actually find, because you mentioned me in this video, they're going to find that information. And they're going to realize that, maybe my fact check isn't 100% perfect, but that's never my goal to be 100% anything. That's a ridiculous goal. Certainty is almost certainly unattainable. But they will realize when they actually start scrolling through the fact check, they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, Dave did make 85 errors, it seems. Or maybe they'll find something, one of those corrections I made was actually, maybe I was incorrect about it and maybe I was wrong. But yeah, what you're trying to do is discredit, I think, all of the work I did to show the misinformation, anti-Semitism, and propaganda in your video.
Even have the courage to try.
Someone just asked, I wonder how I didn't have the courage to try. Dave, seriously? even my greatest hater could say I tried. I didn't have the courage to try. Come on, man. Come on. How many subs Dave lost over this video? I hope Dave doesn't lose any subs over this video. Dave Farina, the world needs to stop doing this. Just because Dave may, in fact, and it seems like he has, made mistakes in the video he released, doesn't mean he has no value. Doesn't mean the value of everything else you used to value loses its value. Is that a riddle? Dave's just Dave. Dave's a fallible human being just like anyone else. So don't go and unsubscribe from Dave because he gets things wrong here. And it's not like the entire video was incorrect, right? We're nitpicking. In the same way, Dave Farina nitpicks other people's videos, which is a good thing.
I don't nitpick the frauds I expose, I obliterate them, and boy does his rhetoric change as his content progresses, and he starts calling this a disgusting piece of propaganda rather than a video with some mistakes that he's nitpicking.
Oh, so you did watch it as this progresses. Well, I guess you showed a couple clips, but yeah, when I actually worked through the videos and did my full analysis, I saw you did some bravely unethical things in the video.
Also, I gained about 12,000 subscribers from this video so far. Thanks for your concern, random asshole.
Protest and random asshole. Well, you gained 12,000 subscribers from that video, but that doesn't mean you didn't lose subscribers as well, Dave. Like, if you just point to the gained subscribers from your video, you can be losing subscribers like from people seeing some of these clips on X from your video or from my video responses and going and unsubscribing from you. Again, you're cherry picking information. Terrorism laws. So Dave's claim Germany is making ordinary criticism of Israel punishable by 5 years in prison. This is false and misleading. The proposal concerns public denial of Israel's right to exist or calls for its destruction under circumstances conducive to anti-Semitic violence, not ordinary policy criticism. So that one is just by Dave is false or misleading.
This is a perfect example of how this is nothing but disingenuous nitpicking. The headline here is that in Germany, you can get 5 years in prison for saying that Israel doesn't have the right to exist. Bear in mind,
the headline, not ordinary policy criticism. Protest and anti-terrorism laws. I gotta go back here. Mistakes in the video he released. Doesn't mean he has no value. Doesn't mean the value of everything else you used to value loses its value. Is that a riddle? Dave's just Dave. Dave's a fallible human being, just like Dave Farina nitpicks other people's videos, which is a good thing.
I don't nitpick the frauds I expose, I obliterate them, and boy does his rhetoric change as his content progresses, and he starts calling this a disgusting piece of propaganda rather than a video with some mistakes that he's nitpicking. Also, I gained about 12,000 subscribers from this video so far. Thanks for your concern, random asshole.
Protest and cherry-picked anti-terrorism laws. So we're talking about Germany here, right? Germany is on, Dave says in his original video, Germany is on board as well, approving a bill that makes criticism of Israel a criminal offense punishable by 5 years in prison. Here's the correction and assessment. German proposal concerned public denial of Israel's right to exist or calls for its abolition in circumstances capable of promoting anti Semitic violence, not ordinary criticism of Israeli policy. It was a legislative proposal, not a blanket 5-year ban on criticism. UK counter-terror measures raise real press and protest concerns, but, quote, criminalizing journalism and activism as such is likewise overboard. Dave's claim Germany is making ordinary criticism of Israel punishable by 5 years in prison. This is false and misleading. The proposal concerns public denial of Israel's right to exist or calls for its destruction under circumstances conducive to anti-Semitic violence, not ordinary policy criticism. So that one is just by Dave is false or misleading.
This is a perfect example of how this is nothing but disingenuous nitpicking. The headline
Why is it disingenuous? And then now you're going to point to a headline?
here is that in Germany, you can get 5 years in prison for saying that Israel doesn't.
Let's do a deep fact check of this again. According to my report, I am correct here. If Dave is right, I will correct it. This seems like wherever he's getting this information, how it's compiled. I've seen these like bolded out pieces of text, and those tend to be misleading. I don't know where he's getting this collection of information. I think he just gets the policy wrong. So one more time, and then we'll check the new deep fact check here. The German proposal concerned public denial of Israel's right to exist, or calls for its abolition in circumstances capable of promoting anti-Semitic violence. So one more time, all together. The German proposal concerned public denial of Israel's rights to exist, or calls for its abolition in circumstances capable of promoting anti-Semitic violence, not ordinary criticism of Israel policy. This is misleading, as demonstrated by how Dave is demonstrating this, and it's not yet law. So the claim you can now get 5 years in prison in Germany merely for publicly denying Israel's right to exist. That is false and wrong. There is no such enacted federal offense. Let's see if there's any other updates here. So the Budapest, the Bundesrat proposal would insert a new provision into 130, roughly providing punishment for up to 5 years imprisonment for someone who publicly or at an assembly denies Israel's right to exist or calls for Israel's elimination in a manner capable of promoting willingness to commit anti-Semitic violence or arbitrary acts. Let me copy that for all of you in chat. It's just so misleading. It's hyper frustrating. Right there. See? You can face up to 5 years for that. Yeah, so this is just an incorrect presentation of this German law. That isn't even on the books, by the way. Let's see where that process is at. It's a serious constitutional controversy that's being debated. So the expression, where the expression is capable of promoting anti-Semitic violence or arbitrary acts. The bill still requires Bundestag action and faces substantial constitutional free speech objections. So it's not on the books yet either. So Dave, you're still just clearly wrong about your presentation of this.
Doesn't have the right to exist. Bear in mind, of course, that Israel objectively does not have the right to exist.
Objectively doesn't have the right to exist? That's a normative position, Dave. Are you a moral objectivist? If so, can you demonstrate the object of morality so we can hold it up to measure this situation here?
States don't have rights.
States do have rights. Do I really? Oh my God. So states do have rights. That's a false claim based on international law. States are legal persons under international law and plainly possess rights as well as duties. I'm sorry, but I'm getting frustrated at cleaning up Dave's dogshit political takes. It's taking a toll. Patience is the fourth Pangburn virtue, ultimate patience, even in the face of detestable ideas. So we'll just breathe through it. But holy shit, Dave, something as simple as this: states don't have rights. Get an education on this. This is, you will learn this in your first political science course. You don't know what you're doing with this information. You've been demonstrated time and time again. I've been having to wipe your ass through this whole process of fact checking your dog shit work. If you handed this in to me as a project, Professor, I would crumple it up, throw it into the garbage, probably spray some lighter fluid on it and light it on fire, and tell you to do it again. But before you do the project again, you must study first. I'm a very patient man. But I feel like I've been having to spend a lot of time for someone who calls himself a professor correcting stupid shit like states don't have rights. What are you talking about? Where did you get your political science education? Notice how I didn't call you dickbag once when I critiqued you there? It's probably time for you to grow up. As a categorical statement, states don't have rights is false in international law. States are legal persons under international law and plainly possess rights as well as duties. The UN Charter itself uses the language of state rights. Article 2 establishes the sovereign equality of states and protects their territorial integrity and political independence. Article 51 expressly recognizes the inherent right of individual or collective self-defense of UN members. UN members are states, Dave. The UN's International Law Commission has even had a formal work stream titled, quote, Fundamental Rights of Duties and States. And its 1949 draft declaration expressly treated states as bearers of both rights and obligations. A major UN declaration on friendly relations is even more explicit. It states that all states have, quote, equal rights and duties. Dave, are you listening? Pay attention, Dave. That each state, quote, enjoys the rights inherent in full sovereignty, and that each has the right freely to choose and develop its political, social, economic, and cultural systems. States have no rights. False. False, Dave. Go back to studying. I shouldn't have to be sitting here wiping your ass on some of these basic elementary mistakes you're making. How you didn't even look at my fact check. It's 30 hours of rigorous work. And you say, yeah, because, there was this guy who had this plan of gaslighting the LLM models into delivering misinformation about Israel, and that this is attempting to be implemented. That means 100% of the fact checking I'm doing can be dismissed. You are propagandizing your audience, Dave. You are engaging in deep propaganda. You are trying to steer your audience away from my rigorous fact checking. This is dishonest. The things you've dealt with in this video, you think you can trick your audience into not actually going and see my final version 2 report of all the data I collected. That's what I'm inferring from your behavior. That's what your behavior is telling me. This is just me being stern. I'm trying to show my frustration. I'm frustrated with Dave and his lack of execution here. He knows better. So I don't know what this is. Thank you so much for the super chat from Germs Goose Fraba. Don't let him rage bait you.
People do. Saying that Israel doesn't have the right to exist is just a neutral statement of fact. So
a neutral statement of fact. So a normative position that they don't have a right to exist is a neutral state of fact. Well, Dave, you're wrong again. States do have rights. And the rights are protected under UN Charter. So you're just wrong. Holy fuck, in Germany, you can now go to jail for saying a true thing. Dave, you don't know what's true with regards to these issues. You have a very, very low resolution grasp on what is true. The truth is, states do have rights. You don't know what you're talking about.
Intellectually honest thing to do would be to marvel at how Germany is descending into fascism and threatening to jail people for things they say, a clear violation of free speech in a supposedly free nation.
This is being highly contested. It is a very controversial bill. It's not on the books, but it doesn't do what you think it does. So again, what you need to add to your information, Germany's Bundesrat has approved a proposed amendment that could punish public denial of Israel's right to exist or calls for its elimination with a fine up to 5 years imprisonment, where, this is the part you left out, I don't know why, where the expression is capable of promoting anti-Semitic violence or arbitrary acts.
And it's happening in service of Israel. This would be insane, even if it were for people publicly calling for the total destruction of Israel. Just like Israelis constantly.
You keep putting up this graphic, Dave. Only 3 of these graphics can reasonably be taken to say what you think they are saying. We've already gone through this. I'm not going to go through it again. It'll be in the final report.
Constantly and loudly call for the total destruction of Gaza. But this isn't even that. It's for saying an objectively true thing. 5 years in jail for saying something that's trivially correct. Holy.
It's not trivially correct. You're too high on your own sauce. It's wrong. States do have rights. States do have rights, everybody. This is just an obvious example of where Dave is wrong.
Fuck, that's chilling. Any normal person would be freaking out about how insane that is. But Pangburn is here to act like a shady lawyer and dig through minutia to manifest microscopic procedural wins, not act like a...
Dave, that is a huge error you've made, thinking that states don't have rights. You're the one making an error and you're pointing at me. You don't even realize the mistakes you're making here.
A real person. So this is what we get.
The next claim, the U.S. NSPM 7 criminalizes anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, and migration advocacy. Unsupported description of the text. The memorandum expands investigation of domestic political violence and raises genuine civil liberties questions, but the video presents ideological examples and feared applications as though they were express criminal offenses.
I literally showed the text that they themselves published, and it listed all of that shit. You're just lying, which is why you're not showing any screenshots from my video. Objectively true thing.
Dave, that's so dishonest. You know that I am just doing a transcript fact check in this first initial fact check. You know I've gone through your videos, frame by frame, moment by moment, and produced a comprehensive, expert level, academic, epistemically rigorous report that demonstrates all your misinformation, anti-Semitism, and propaganda in your video. You're being deeply dishonest.
5 years in jail for saying
Capitalism, anti-Christianity, and migration advocacy. Unsupported description of the text. The memorandum expands investigation of domestic political violence and raises genuine civil liberties questions, but the video presents ideological examples and feared applications as though they were express criminal offenses.
I literally showed the text that
I want to grab that. Dave shows it for 2 seconds.
And raises genuine
Like,
civil
not even 2
liberties
seconds.
questions.
Is that 1
but
second?
the video presents ideological examples and feared applications
game?
as though they were express criminal offenses.
Get the other one.
I literally showed the text that they
So that was like 2 seconds he shared that graphic for. How are people even supposed to see the information, Dave? I mean, like, what does he think his audience is getting out of that? He flashes for maybe 1.5 seconds, maybe 2 seconds, that graphic, and then moves to the next one. Does he expect his audiences to pause there and read it? Good evening, everybody. Make sure you smash that like button. We've been at this all day. This is actually part 2, 3.5 today because I lost power. So some claims made about these 2 documents that Dave just shared. So let's go through the propositions and then the verdicts. So NSPM 7 literally mentions anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, and anti-Christianity. That is true. It mentions migration /race/gender extremism and hostility to traditional family religious values. True. It incorporates those views into its description of ideological indicators /motivations surrounding violent extremism. True. DOJ later operationalized substantially the same list in implementation guidance. True. The memo directs investigations of certain funders, organizations, and NGOs linked to alleged criminal conduct. True. Major civil liberties organizations say this creates serious First Amendment chilling effect risks. True. Now let's get into the falsehoods that are connected to this. Being anti-capitalist is now legally, quote, domestic terrorism. False. Criticizing Christianity is now a federal crime. False. Advocating liberal immigration /gender policies is itself prosecutable under NSPM 7. False. NSPM 7 itself creates new criminal offenses. False. Nonprofits are categorically designated terrorists. False. Free speech has been, quote, completely dismantled. This is a exaggeration. NSPM can create a legitimate risk of viewpoint bias, investigation /chilling effects. That's a well-grounded concern. So let's go back to see what Dave claims about what I said. Capitalism, anti-Christianity, and migration advocacy.
a shady lawyer and dig through minutia to manifest microscopic procedural wins, not act like a real person. So this is what we get.
The next claim, the U.S. NSPM 7 criminalizes anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, and migration advocacy. Unsupported description of the text. Yeah, remember? So being anti-capitalist, this idea that it's now legally domestic terrorism, false. Criticizing Christianity is now a federal crime, false. The memorandum expands investigation of domestic political violence and raises genuine civil liberties questions, but the video presents ideological examples and feared applications as though they were express criminal offenses.
I literally showed the text that they themselves published, and it listed all of that shit. You're just lying, which is why you're not showing any screenshots from my video, since they prove the things I say.
The quote, Ashkenazi and misleading. The proposal concerns public denial of Israel's right to exist or calls
I need
for
to go
its
back because Dave is not presenting the entire piece here.
destruction under circumstances conducive to anti-Semitic violence, not ordinary policy criticism. So that one is just by Dave is false or misleading.
This is a perfect example of how this is nothing but disingenuous nitpicking. The headline here is that in Germany, you can get 5 years in prison
The headline.
for saying that Israel doesn't have the right to exist.
We just debunked that, by the way.
Bear in mind, of course, that Israel objectively does not have the right to exist. States don't have rights.
False. States do have rights. False.
People do. Saying that Israel doesn't have the right to exist is just a neutral statement of fact. So
No, it's not.
the intellectually honest thing to do would be to marvel at how Germany is descending into fascism and threatening to jail people for things they say, a clear violation of free speech in a supposedly free nation.
That is an opinion of many Germans who are fighting against this bill.
And it's happening in service of Israel. This would be insane even if it were for people publicly calling for the total destruction of Israel, just like Israelis constantly and loudly.
Sorry, I went back far there, but I really need to. I don't think Dave is giving enough the clip for people to realize what we're talking
call
about.
for the total destruction of Gaza. But this isn't even that. It's for saying an objectively true thing.
No, that's wrong.
5 years in
We've already demonstrated that.
jail for saying something that's trivially correct. Holy fuck, that's chilling. Any normal person would be freaking out about how insane that is. But Pangburn is here to act like a shady lawyer and dig through minutiae.
No, I'm here to correct you on your misinformation. States do have rights. And this whole diatribe you're on here is based on false misinformation that you think states don't have rights.
To manifest microscopic procedural wins, not act like a real person. So this is what we get.
The next claim, the U.S. NSPM 7 criminalizes anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, and migration advocacy. Unsupported description of the text. The memorandum expands investigation. Let me go to NSPM 7. Thank you so much for the $20 super chat. Really appreciate that. For the hard work. Thank you so much, Discarded Sunday. Thank you, thank you. I really appreciate that. I will respond to any super chats. We're keeping going. I think we've been at it for about 8 hours today, so we're rocking. We're rocking. I got to turn your guys' video game back on. Sorry, I wanted to pull up my NSPM 7 NSPM 7. Okay. Where do I have NSPM 7? I have it in a few places. So Dave's full claim, he mentions NSPM 7 a few times in the original video. He said, anyone who criticizes Israel is being monitored by the FBI.
The government has broad powers to prosecute almost anyone under terrorism charges simply for doing routine journalism or peaceful protesting. Surveillance and civil liberties concerns are real, but the FBI does not monitor literally everyone who criticizes Israel, and peaceful criticism or routine journalism is not itself criminalized by NSPM 7. The memorandum targets alleged alleged organized political violence and related networks, though its breadth may invite abuse. So again, he mentions it. Here's his full quote. NSPM 7 officially directs federal agencies to aggressively investigate and disrupt groups and individuals that they decide are linked to political violence. What are the targets? Anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, extremism on migration, race, and gender, opposition to traditional American views on family, religion, and morality. This is the complete dismantling of free speech. So there's Dave's quote. And then the correction and assessment here. And this is a misleading legal framing, by the way. The memorandum does list ideological, quote, common threads said to animate violent conduct, a formulation that raises serious civil liberties concerns. It does not make anti-capitalism, criticism of Christianity, progressive gender views, or immigration advocacy crimes in themselves. The video converts risk indicators and investigatory policy into direct criminalization of beliefs. Another thing he says on the NSPM 7, they will send ICE agents or drones to murder people in broad daylight. Sympathy for the victims of Israeli terrorism are now terrorists, according to the state. Israel has their hands in absolutely all of this, all of it. So this is a prediction and conspiracy assertion, not an established fact. NSPM 7 does not classify sympathy for Palestinian victims as terrorism, and no evidence is supplied that Israel controls every component of U.S. immigration surveillance and protest policy. Of domestic political violence and raises genuine civil liberties questions, but the video presents ideological examples and feared applications as though they were express criminal offenses.
I literally showed the text that they themselves published, and it listed all of that shit. You're just lying, which is why you're not.
Dave, you should have showed what you said in the actual video. I just dealt with what you said in the actual video in my report. You just flashed a couple of blocks of text very quickly and said I was just lying. I was not lying. I was dealing with what you actually said in the video, what existed in the transcript.
Not showing any screenshots from my video.
Someone just said, why should Dave have to have evidence? He's on the right side of history. Because we're trying to get a handle on what the facts actually are. Why should Dave have to have evidence for his belief? Oh my, really?
Since they prove the things I say.
The quote, Ashkenazi Jews are simply European. This is false. Genomic research consistently finds that Ashkenazi Jews possess both Middle Eastern, Levantine, and European ancestry. Estimates vary by method, source population, and genomic region, but the evidence does not support either, quote, purely European or purely Levantine.
Asshole, when you say you're quoting someone, you have to actually be quoting them. I didn't say simply European. I said largely European. Here's the clip to prove it.
Do Ashkenazi Jews have more Middle Eastern ancestry than Scandinavians? Obviously, but over many centuries, that ancestry got diluted and they're largely European now.
Largely European, as in some Middle Eastern and some European. You're literally corroborating what I said while pretending I'm wrong.
Go to genomic. How do you spell Ashkenazi? Let's go back. Levantine and European. Okay, here we go. So Dave's actual clip from the video is, "You and all your piece of shit Zionist cronies are not Semites. Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews like you and Bibi and all the rest are European. You literally are not a Semite. While Palestinians are Semite, therefore Zionists are in reality anti-Semitic. Ashkenazi Jews like Bibi are way more European than Middle Eastern." So we'll deal with this one. The one specifically Dave is referring to is a different time he mentioned this, but I think this is important for the record because Dave actually did say this. So this is scientifically false framing by Professor Dave Explains. One more time, Dave's quote here. "You and all your piece of shit Zionist cronies are not Semites. Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews like you and Bibi are all the rest are European. You literally are not a Semite, while Palestinians are Semites. Therefore, Zionists are in reality are anti-Semitic. Ashkenazi Jews like Bibi are way more European than Middle Eastern." So the correction here, and the reason why this is scientifically false or just pure anti-science, Semite is a linguistic historical category, not a biological test that determines who can experience anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism conventionally means hostility towards Jews. Population genetic research shows Ashkenazi Jews have both substantial Levantine/Middle Eastern and European ancestry. Sephardi populations are also diverse. The biological syllogism is invalid. So that part is anti-scientific. Now let me go up to where Dave mentions, maybe that dealt with the entire one. Let me go back a little bit.
Showed the text that they themselves published, and it listed all of that shit. You're just lying, which is why you're not showing any screenshots from my video, since they prove the things I say.
Dave, I'm not showing screenshots from your video because this is just a transcript fact check, but you already know, I just have to say it again, you already know I went through meticulously through your videos. So I think you're the one that's misleading people on that. The quote, "Ashkenazi Jews are simply European." This is false. Genomic research consistently finds that Ashkenazi Jews possess both Middle Eastern, Levantine, and European ancestry. Estimates vary by method, source population, and genomic region, but the evidence does not support either, quote, purely European or purely Levantine.
Asshole, when you say you're quoting someone, you have to actually be quoting them. I didn't say simply European. I said large.
So it is possible that Dave said largely European instead of simply European. That would have been corrected when I went through the actual full analysis, and it is corrected in the final version 2 report. But in this initial transcript fact check, that Dave could be correct that I got that wrong. But let's, for the sake of this video, let's look at largely European. So still, Dave, even if you're saying largely European, it's too vague to rate simply true or false. The best academic verdict is potentially misleading. If he means Ashkenazi Jews have substantial European ancestry, perhaps around half or slightly more in some models, that is supported. Again, half or slightly more. Does that mean largely? I don't think that's a good representative language of the data. If he means Ashkenazi Jews are overwhelmingly European in genetic ancestry and have little meaningful Middle Eastern / Levantine ancestry, that is not supported by mainstream population genetic research. And I think he's trying to mean the latter, but let's listen more.
Largely European. Here's the clip to prove it.
Do Ashkenazi Jews have more Middle Eastern ancestry than Scandinavians? Obviously, but over many centuries, that ancestry got diluted and they're largely European now.
Let's look at this is misleading genetics. More anti-science. That ancestry got diluted. That's what he just said, right? And they're largely European. Israel, okay, let's look at this full section. Or let's see. Yeah, largely European. I think that shows up in the anti-Semitism section. So the full quote is, this is also why these ancestry kits are tightly regulated in Israel and can't be purchased in Israeli. They don't want citizens to find out that they're not Middle Eastern. That ancestry got diluted and they're largely European. Israel regulates particular legal family relationship and paternity tests, often requiring court authorization. That is not proof of a general ancestry test ban, and no documentary evidence shows a concealment motive. Ashkenazi ancestry is mixed. Studies often estimate substantial contributions from both European and Middle Eastern sources rather than not Middle Eastern. So largely European is still wrong, Dave.
Here's the clip to prove it.
Do Ashkenazi Jews have more Middle Eastern ancestry than Scandinavians? Obviously, but over many centuries, that ancestry got diluted and they're largely European now.
Largely European, as in some Middle Eastern and some European. You're literally...
No, largely doesn't mean some Middle Eastern, some European. Largely points to a majority, a demonstrable majority. That's very dishonest, Dave. Or purely Levantine.
Asshole, when you say you're quoting someone, you have to actually be quoting them. I didn't say simply European. I said largely European. Here's the clip to prove it.
Do Ashkenazi Jews have more Middle Eastern ancestry than Scandinavians? Obviously, but over many centuries, that ancestry got diluted and they're largely European now.
Largely European, as in some Middle Eastern and some European.
No, not some Middle Eastern and some European. That's not what largely European means. Doesn't mean some Middle Eastern, some European. You're saying, why didn't you say largely Middle Eastern? If you're equating these things to be the same, you said some Middle Eastern, some European. Why didn't you say largely Middle Eastern? You're not fooling anyone, Dave, with that framing. Yikes. And it is potentially true, and we will check that first initial transcript fact check that happened before I started the next day to do the full walkthrough analysis of your videos and reacted to everything and fact checked everything, which resulted in the version 2 report that is publicly available at pang-burn.com/analysis that surely you know about and haven't brought up yet in this video. I mean, the video, we're running out of time, man. So you're still wrong about the largely European categorization of Ashkenazi Jews. Yikes.
You're literally corroborating what I said while pretending I'm wrong. What a fraud.
One of the claims by Dave was Israel bans ancestry tests because they would expose Jewish origins. This is an unsupported conspiracy theory. Israel tightly regulates genetic testing, especially tests concerning parentage, family status. Dave is fooling. I don't know. Like, is Dave fooling a lot of people with this, or are people just are just so disgusted with what's gone on in Gaza that they don't care if the information is factual? They just care that Dave is on the right side, because if they actually care about what's factual and they think they have a handle on what's factual, that's a different animal altogether. It's almost more understandable to think about the wave of people who think Dave is just like based in this video and really has access to the actual facts, when really it's quite easy to demonstrate that it's just full of misinformation. That they're supporting Dave because even though it's full of misinformation, that he's on the quote right side of history. So why should Dave need evidence anyway? He's on the right side of history, someone just said in the comment section. And medical information.
Again, that's literally what I fucking said. I said they tightly regulate genetic testing. Again, let's play the actual clip like you should have fucking done.
This is also why these ancestry kits are tightly regulated in Israel and can't be purchased in Israeli pharmacies. They don't want citizens to find out that they're not fucking Middle Eastern. They pretend to have a divine claim to a region that they're not from.
See that? I didn't say ban. I said regulate. You said ban and then corrected the thing I didn't say with the phrasing I actually used. Are you fucking kidding me with this?
Let's go back here. Let's go to genetic.
This is also why these ancestry kits are tightly regulated in Israel and can't be purchased in Israeli pharmacies. They don't want citizens to find out that they're not fucking Middle Eastern.
I have it right here. Dave says this is also why these ancestry kits are tightly regulated in Israel. Are you following along in the report? I have it up on the screen. This is also why these ancestry kits are tightly regulated in Israel and can't be purchased in Israeli. They don't want citizens to find out that they're not effing Middle Eastern. That ancestry got diluted and they're largely European. So let's finish listening.
They pretend to have a divine claim to a region that they're not from.
See?
Divine region. That'll be in a different one. So Israel regulates particular legal. So this is just unsupportive motive and misleading genetics. Israel regulates particular legal family relationship and paternity tests, often requiring court authorization. And let me see if Dave's right of, yeah, and it might be like ban in this initial fact check could be wrong.
Largely European, as in some Middle Eastern and some European. You're literally...
But again, Dave, this was the first initial fact check. You're disregarding the actual final report. When I mentioned many, many times that these reports are open living documents, they're going to be updated, and this was just an initial fact check of the transcript. And then I did all of the extensive work, which you are disregarding in this entire video. So you're not dealing with the strongest arguments against your case. What you've tried to do here is go in to see where maybe I got on the first run of the transcript a couple qualifying words wrong here or there, and you're trying to paint it like that means my critique in total was incorrect. Just like the last example when you said, I said largely European. I don't think you're fooling anyone with this tactic, honestly.
Corroborating what I said while pretending I'm wrong. What a fraud.
One of the claims by Dave was Israel bans ancestry tests because they would expose Jewish origins. This is an unsupported conspiracy theory. Israel tightly regulates. It's also why ancestry kits are tightly regulated in Israel. Regulates genetic testing, especially tests concerning parentage. Yeah, I think Dave is right that he didn't mention ban in the transcript. So that correction was wrong, but let's see if it affects the final unsupported motive / misleading genetics question here. Family status and medical information.
Again, that's literally what I fucking said. I said they tightly regulate genetic testing. Again, let's play the actual clip like you should have fucking done.
This is also why these ancestry kits are tightly regulated in Israel and can't be purchased in Israeli pharmacies. They don't want citizens to find out that they're not fucking Middle Eastern. They pretend to have a divine claim to a region that they're not from.
See that? I didn't say ban. I said regulate. You said ban.
Dave, you are misdirecting people to focus on the wrong thing here. That is unsupported and misleading genetics. So yes, correct. Ban, there is no ban. It's tightly regulated. Fine, you didn't say that precise claim. And again, this was corrected if you would have done proper research, or if you cared to actually deal with the most robust version of this fact check, you would have taken the actual report and you would have included it in your video. But now I have to do it for you, just like everything else with regards to this never-ending project. So here's the correction. Israel regulates, let's do your quote again. This is why these ancestry kits are tightly regulated in Israel and can't be purchased in Israeli. They don't want citizens to find out that they're not effing Middle Eastern. The ancestry got diluted and they're largely European. So if you actually went and find the most up-to-date report, which I think everyone who's using the internet for the first day of their life could find, you would have saw that that little ban error was corrected. So again, you have an unsupported motive and a misleading genetics. So Israel regulates particular legal family relationship and paternity tests, often requiring court authorization. This is not proof of general ancestry test ban, and no documentary evidence. That's not saying you said ban, but this is not proof of a general ancestry test ban, and no documentary evidence shows a concealment motive. You say this is why these ancestry kits are tightly regulated in Israel and can't be purchased in Israeli. They don't want citizens to know. You're engaging in motive attribution again. No documentary evidence shows a concealment motive. You're making that motive up, Dave, unless you can demonstrate it. And here's the misleading genetics part. Ashkenazi ancestry is mixed. Studies often estimate substantial contributions from both European and Middle Eastern sources rather than not Middle Eastern. And before you said largely European, which is still incorrect. Family status and medical information.
Again, that's literally what I fucking said. I said they tightly
You're focusing on one word that was incorrect. It's literally what I fucking said. No, it's not what you said.
Regulate genetic testing. Again, let's play the actual clip like you should have fucking done.
This is also why these ancestry kits are tightly regulated in Israel and can't be purchased in Israeli pharmacies. They don't want citizens to find out that they're not fucking Middle Eastern. They pretend to have a divine claim to a region that they're not from.
See that? I didn't say ban. I said regulate. You said ban, and then corrected the thing I didn't say with the phrasing I actually used. Are you fucking kidding me with this shit?
The regulatory system reflects privacy, family law, and religious status concerns. No evidence shows that its purpose is to conceal Ashkenazi ancestry.
See, this is the problem with fact-checking like this and pretending you're being empirical. It's just a cop-out. Of course, there's no explicit, conclusive evidence to prove that this is why they...
I didn't say explicit, conclusive evidence. Let's go back.
And to have a divine claim to a
Maybe
region that they're not...
Nazi ancestry. Nazi ancestry.
See, this is the problem with...
And to have a divine claim to a region that they're not from.
See that? I didn't say ban. I said regulate. You said ban, and then corrected the thing I didn't say with the phrasing I actually used. Are you fucking kidding me with this shit?
The regulatory system reflects privacy, family law, and religious status concerns. No evidence shows that its purpose is to conceal Ashkenazi ancestry. I said no evidence shows, Dave.
See, this is the problem with fact-checking like this and pretending you're being empirical. It's just a cop-out. Of course, there's no explicit, conclusive evidence.
I didn't say explicit, conclusive. I said evidence. What is your evidence that this is the case? That this is a reasonable justification to believe this unsupported at this time motive? Where's your evidence?
To prove that this is why they so tightly regulate access to genetic testing kits. The claim that Israel does this to discourage citizens from realizing that they're not Middle Eastern is not in the same epistemic category as F equals MA. So
I didn't say it was. Is his audience really going to buy this crap? This is unbelievable.
fuck what? It's an extremely logical and compelling explanation.
No, it's not an extremely logical and compelling information because you have no positive evidence to demonstrate that there's some conspiracy here. This is also why these ancestry kits are tightly regulated in Israel and can't be purchased in Israeli. They don't want citizens to find out they're not effing Middle Eastern. Yeah. How do you know that, Dave?
For a bizarre and arbitrary regulation. He's acting like this could only be true if Israeli officials explicitly and publicly stated on the record that this...
No, I didn't say they have to explicitly state it on the record. He's acting like this is more mind reading and motive attribution. Well, I guess he's saying I'm acting like. That wasn't fair. I'm acting like that? How can you demonstrate I'm acting like that when I just said there is no evidence of this? Or meaning positive evidence.
This was the reason for the regulation. Which of course they would never do. This isn't the physical sciences. You have to look at what dishonest governing bodies are doing and construct plausible explanations for the things they do. What I said is an extremely plausible and sensible explanation, which he refuses to engage with in an intellectually honest way. It's just, no
That's just attacking the person again, Dave. That's not convincing to anyone who knows how to think through that stuff.
Proof, duh. And he acts like he's winning something.
Destiny, in a video clip, apparently gives advice to Israeli soldiers to put away their cameras. The quote telling soldiers not to film themselves wearing Palestinian women's clothing is real. It can reasonably be condemned as callous because it treats degrading behavior as a public relations error and makes a joke using the term war crimes. So yeah, this is Destiny's making a joke here, and it's dark humor, right? That's the way I understood it, and I understand how people are not going to like that kind of humor. But my understanding of that moment is that he was making a joke. And I believe he was talking in front of a group of Jewish people when he was in Israel.
Yes, he was joking about IOF terrorists murdering Palestinians and then taking pictures wearing the.
Yeah, I denounce this, Dave. I denounce this behavior in my work. And I was talking about the instance when Destiny was making a dark humor joke about this stuff.
Their clothes. And he was essentially encouraging them to keep doing all of that, except for the taking pictures and sharing them on social media part. That's not dark humor. That's called whitewashing genocide. Good God.
No, I don't think that's whitewashing genocide. I mean, you can have your opinion on what Destiny was doing there. If you think he was trying to whitewash genocide, fine.
This is the most transparent damage control I've ever seen.
What would it take for you to take the genocide that's happening in the region as a established fact? Because there isn't like a supreme body of truth to tell us that.
Well, there's the International Court determination, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for that. If the International Court determination determines that, yes, a genocide was committed, I will accept and believe that a genocide was committed. I'm relying on that body of consensus for that.
And now we get to the genocide denial. Destiny denies the very obvious genocide Israel is objectively committing, either for money or out of spite.
Does Dave ever demonstrate Destiny actually saying he denies the genocide? Or, because I haven't seen that. I've seen Destiny be skeptical about it and ask questions about it, but I haven't seen it. And maybe he has said that, but if Dave did I mean, to me, it is irresponsible epistemically and ethically to call this a genocide until the actual investigation has been done. The ICJ is the body that is equipped to do the actual investigation and do the actual expert adjudication of this case. And that's what I am waiting for. Is my screen freezing? No, I think we're good. We're good. Yeah, so as much as you scream genocide, people who want to scream genocide and think that they're justified in believing a genocide has occurred, I haven't seen substantial positive evidence in support of genocidal intent. So that doesn't mean this doesn't exist, but the ICJ is who is well equipped to investigate whether or not a genocide has occurred in Gaza. And I think it's irresponsible to come to that conclusion and think you're justified because human rights organizations or UN commissions have found that genocide has occurred in Gaza. The reason why that's irresponsible is because the defense in this case, Israel, has not given their evidence and counter evidence to the case of genocide because they don't need to give it to these human rights organizations. They don't need to give it to the UN Commission. They need to give it to the ICJ, the International Court of Justice. So things that you think demonstrate genocidal intent, the counter evidence, the counterfactuals, whatever happens in court can overturn that. And what are people going to do? Just like dig their heels in and be like, I don't care what the ICJ says. It's genocide. Let's look at you guys here. What's going on in chat? What up, everybody? Thanks for being here. Make sure you smash that like button. It looks like Zoe's voice from our Discord. What up, Zoe? Says, I'm also running a charitable check on all of Travis's statements. That's good. Everybody should be running their own fact checking on all of this stuff. That's the kind of posture, that's the kind of culture I'm trying to promote. So if someone like Zoe comes up with corrections that need to be made from any of our reports, any of our analysis reports, that would add to the resolution of the report, then we will adopt it and we will put it into the report. And I think I'll find a way to actually include the author of the update in some way. Good sound epistemology should never be viewed as some kind of like certaintist game or infallible posturing game. It should be fallible, open to update. Regardless of how wrong you might have been about a particular case or issue or thing that you thought you got right in your own fact checking, you got to be open to update. You have to be. Dave today pointed out, I'm still really frustrated that Dave is doing this dishonest thing of engaging with the first initial transcript fact check when he knows the more rigorous report was generated from the actual full analysis videos that I did. So I think I'm reasonably justified to call Dave dishonest for that. And that's a shame. I was hoping Dave would have actually dealt with the rigorous reporting, the rigorous analysis that I put a lot of work into, but he didn't. And that's dishonest. It just is. So, I mean, we continue on, but Zoe, if you're doing all of this work, please make sure it's based on version 2 of the report and all of the corrections and analysis that I've been doing through the full analysis of Dave's video. Make sure you're using the updated information. So Zoe says, but the live stream comments are equally important. Well, yeah, you can audit those. You can fact check those. That's fine. But nobody's dismissing them from criticism. I'm a bit suspicious, Zoe, based on some of your rhetoric in the chat, but I look forward to seeing the work you do. This idea you cannot dismiss them from criticism, why would you say that? That's a weird thing to say. Yeah. But we'll see.
For Hassan. Pangburn denies it too because he earns money from Destiny. And this bullshit attempt to sound scholarly and discerning while doing so is absolutely revolting. Let's understand why. An ICJ court case requires formal participation from Israel, and they are allowed to delay proceedings as long as they want. That's what they've been doing in
Because Zoe, you were acting like I was saying I cannot dismiss my own comments from criticism. That's an odd thing to say in that chain of other things you said, because I didn't do that.
Indefinitely while committing genocide. Israel says, hey, we need more than the 9 months allotted to prepare our case.
I never said you couldn't use the live stream comments. You can use whatever, you can fact check my entire life history, whatever exists on the internet, that's fine. But the point is, you said in your text, you cannot dismiss them from criticism. Why did you say that? That's weird. You said, but the live stream comments are equally important. You cannot dismiss them from criticism. Is that not what you said? I think that's what you said, Zoe. So that makes me suspicious.
They'll delay as much as they can while continuing to do genocide, even though South Africa stated that there was no basis for the extension request. Their filibuster.
Yeah, but even if you're smiling while you say that, Zoe, but the live stream comments are equally important. You cannot dismiss them from criticism. I mean, okay.
Bustering. They're dragging it out to delay culpability.
Okay.
For genocide as long as humanly possible. Then, once prosecution and defense lay out their case, there's another 6 months each for the second round. In the meantime, the ICJ has already ruled that genocide is plausible and...
No, the ICJ has not ruled that genocide is plausible. This is a big piece of misinformation that is being spread around the internet. This is made explicit by the ICJ spokesperson themselves. Norm Finkelstein is spreading this misinformation as well. So Dave is repeating more misinformation. He says the ICJ has said it's plausible that Israel has committed genocide. This is incorrect, false, material misstatement of the ICJ's findings. The ICJ did not rule that it was plausible that Israel committed genocide, nor that South Africa had established a plausible case of genocide. What it actually found in January 2024 was that some of the rights asserted under the Genocide Convention were plausible, specifically the Palestinians' right to be protected from genocide and South Africa's right to seek Israel's compliance with the convention. So that's just a false piece of misinformation that keeps getting thrown around. I don't know why that distinction is so hard for people. Zoe, I'm not saying you're disingenuous. Again, when I didn't say anything related to not using live stream comments. You said you cannot dismiss them from criticism. I didn't say that. So that's why it's a suspicious comment. When people say things to me as though they're responding to something I had said, and they say, well, you can't do that, Travis. I'm like, I never said I was doing that. That's suspicious when people say things like that to me.
Issued demands to stop acts of genocide, and Israel ignored all of them, continuing to starve people and demolish everything in Gaza.
They haven't demolished everything in Gaza. Dave's getting into his...
lay out their case, there's another 6 months each for the second round. In the meantime, the ICJ has already ruled that genocide is plausible.
Wrong. Wherever Dave is getting this information is just dead wrong. This is a bad... he's not posting his resources for this.
And issued...
Is this from Norman Finkelstein?
...demands to stop acts of genocide, and Israel...
In January last year, the ICJ ruled that the claim of genocide was plausible. He said this recently in the Hassan Piker fact check and anti-Semitism check that I did. And of course, Norm Finkelstein is an explicit anti-Semite. The evidence is just clear about that. Just right off the bat. It's just an interesting factoid.
Ignored all of them, continuing to starve people and demolish everything in Gaza. Fixating on a formal verdict of genocide is nothing more than a distraction, delaying action by the international community to end crimes against humanity that will inevitably be ruled as genocide.
That's more mind reading and motive attribution. That's not the reason. The reason is because the weight of a genocide conviction for a state, for a nation, is extremely heavy. And it should be treated with due seriousness. It's not to minimize the destruction and death that has happened in this conflict. That is not the point. This is a legal distinction. It's not a vibes distinction. It's not a look around at all the destruction and the death and say, how is this not a genocide? That's not how it works. You need to demonstrate genocidal intent. And the ICJ is best suited to determine this. At this point, with regards to this case of genocide, I think it's most likely, because I have not seen any strong evidence of genocidal intent, that the court would consider strong evidence. I don't think they're going to make that determination. I don't think it's going to meet the standard. But that doesn't mean that there isn't seemingly a whole plethora of war crimes and potentially ethnic cleansing that has taken place because of the mass displacement. So there are other crimes on the table. It's not just about genocide. I honestly think there's too much weight put on that label compared to the specific war crimes. Like the war crime the seeming war crime that really bothers me, that's been sticking with me, is the gentleman and his family. The gentleman has a white flag that he's holding up, and he's with his family. All he wants to do, seemingly, and this needs to be investigated, this is potentially one of the war crimes. All he wants to do is go in to some dangerous territory and help save and retrieve some of his family members. He's got a white flag up.
these are not viable targets. And yet, as they progress further towards the danger zone, towards where their family members are needing assistance, whether or not the family members are legitimate military targets, I don't know. But this guy gets shot. And that one I've been thinking about a lot. And there are many other issues of children being found with single gunshot wounds to the head. I believe it's 20 cases off the top of my head. I think there is almost certainly a large amount of war crimes that have been committed. Now, war crimes get committed in wars all the time. It happens. Soldiers go rogue. They do things that they are not supposed to be doing. And it's a terrible thing. But people who commit these crimes need to be held accountable. The war crime of starvation, malnutrition, there might be an argument for this. I think Israel will have be presenting a pretty strong defense where they tried their best to get food and nutrition into Gaza. But at the end of the day, will they be able to demonstrate that they did enough? I don't know. All right.
Side. That's why we look to human rights organizations and independent genocide scholars who aren't drowning in bureaucracy to make their determinations. And they have unanimously determined that this is genocide.
It's not unanimous, Dave. Where's my list? Was that in my other tab? Let me just see. There's a fly bothering me. Oh. That must have been in the other branch. I'll just regenerate it here. I'll pull up my list again of the human rights organizations that have not made the determination of genocide, those who are actually working in the region as well.
Travis doesn't even attempt to engage with a single organization or scholar that I listed, or acknowledge anything that any of them say. It's just, ICJ not say yet, so I no believe. Unga bunga. He knows this ruling won't happen for at least another year and a half while Israel.
No, the ruling, first of all, I've engaged with all of the organizations that you've cited, Dave. You just didn't, for some reason, engage with the actual report I released and my actual play-by-play full analysis videos. You've cherry-picked this first original transcript. You would know that I contended with all of your sources and resources if you would have actually used all the information that was compiled from all of this work. But you didn't. I'm just pulling up a list of all the human rights organizations that have not made the determination of genocide of the ones that have worked in Gaza.
Continues to murder people and illegally expand its territory every single day. And do you know what else Israel is doing while the ICJ moves at a snail's pace? They're hauling off 100 trucks worth of rubble per day, 10 million tons so far, with no independent oversight. This is not just to prepare for real estate development. They are actively erasing evidence of their war crimes. They're removing bodies of innocent people they've slaughtered, whether in mass. You know what else Israel is doing while the ICJ moves at a snail's pace? They're hauling off 100 trucks worth of rubble per day, 10 million tons so far, with no independent oversight.
Well, here goes Donkey Kong. I'll always choose Donkey Kong for the most part when I play kart. Thank you so much for the $20 super chat from Joe. Says, I'm slightly behind, but this piqued my interest. I don't know the specifics of this incident, but in the Israel-Palestine context, wouldn't the question of shooting a civilian waving a white flag be less obvious? Thank you for your time. What do you mean? Wouldn't the question of shooting a civilian waving a white flag be less obvious? Sorry, Joe, if you have any like follow-up clarification for that, not sure what you mean. Slightly behind. Thank you so much for the super chat, by the way. I really appreciate that. Wouldn't the question of shooting a civilian waving a white flag be less obvious? Less obvious compared to what? David's been waiting very patiently. Does IP Israel Palestine mean inspiring philosophy channel? Internet protocol? I think he means Israel Palestine. Well, it's getting late, folks. Let's look at the list of human rights organizations. I have the information here. Okay, first let's look at the organizations that have. So these organizations have gone sufficiently far that we should not describe them as institutionally neutral, non-determinative anymore. So these organizations have explicitly described ongoing genocide or have an explicit genocide position. Okay, so Amnesty International explicitly concludes genocide. B'Tselem explicitly concludes genocide. Positions for Human Rights Israel concludes genocide. International Federation for Human Rights, FIDH, concludes genocide. World Organization Against Torture, OMCT, endorses explicit genocide framing. Frontline Defenders explicitly refers to ongoing genocide. El Haq, explicit genocide position. El Mazem Center for Human Rights, explicit genocide position. Palestinian Center for Human Rights, explicit genocide position. Mwatana for Human Rights, explicit genocide position. Global Center for the Responsibility to Protect, now explicitly concludes genocide. DAWN, DAWN, explicitly describes ongoing genocide. And Safe World by 2025 to 2026 adopts/endorses genocide framing. And then let's look at organizations that have not determined genocide, that have not made this determination. So the ICJ, International Commission of Jurists, the NGO, Not the World Court. So what it said about Gaza: serious risk of genocide. Blockade may constitute an underlying genocidal act. Some official statements may be evidence of genocidal intent. States have duty to prevent. No definitive genocide determination. Civil rights defenders say grave violations, starvation, displacement, killings, supports ICC/ICJ accountability, cites other organizations' genocide findings, no independent organizational genocide finding. Human Rights First, no genocide determination located. Freedom House, no genocide determination located. Open Society Justice Initiative, no genocide determination located. Trial International, no definitive genocide determination located. Redress, no, does not itself determine that genocide occurred in its current Gaza material. Reporters Without Borders, no organizational genocidal determination located. Association for Civil Rights in Israel, ACRI, no institutional genocidal determination located. Gisha, Legal Center for Freedom of Movements, no standalone genocide determination located. Hammock Center for the Defense of the Individual, no genocidal determination. Yesdin, no genocidal determination located. Breaking the silence, no standalone organizational genocidal determination located. BIMCOM, planners for planning rights, no genocide determination located. IR-AMIM, no genocide determination located. Masham Watch, no genocide determination located. Emek Shava, no genocide determination located. Public Committee Against Torture in Israel, PCATI, no standalone genocide determination located in the material. Combatants for Peace, no genocide determination. And yeah. So this isn't a list of all the organizations that haven't made no genocide determination that have looked closely or worked in Gaza. So Dave's claim that this is unanimous is just false.
This is not just to prepare for real estate.
Also, I want to look at this. Dave said they are now actually removing evidence of their war crimes. This is a plausible concern, but it's presented as an established conclusion. So a much more defensible statement would be Israeli demolition and rubble removal operations may be destroying or displacing physical evidence relevant to investigations of alleged war crimes and genocide, particularly because international forensic investigators have not had access to many sites before they are altered. This is strongly worth investigating, but, quote, Israel has been proven to be deliberately removing evidence in order to conceal its war crimes, has not yet been established by the evidence available.
Estate development, they are actively erasing evidence of their war crimes. They're removing bodies of innocent people they've slaughtered, whether in mass graves or under demolished buildings.
Oh, how long was the first video? Bluebird Mob says almost every single rocket that Hamas and Hezbollah fire at Israel. Thank you so much for the super chat, by the way. Hezbollah fire at Israel is a war crime, let alone how they engage in perfidy, commingling of military and civilians, hostage taking, etc. Thank you so much for the super chat. I'm going to check out that particular claim. We haven't focused a lot on Hamas in all of this because Dave doesn't really make claims much at all about Hamas, but we haven't really delved deeply into Hamas. Dave says they are removing bodies of innocent civilians they have slaughtered. This is unverified, materially overstated by Dave. So I don't think there's any verified evidence of this. We'll point out that the debris scattered across Gaza may contain potential mass graves and bodies of entire families. So even in Dave's cited document says may contain potential mass graves and bodies of entire families. But listen to how he frames this.
May not say yet, so I no believe. Unga bunga. He knows this ruling won't happen for at least another year and a half while Israel...
By the way, Dave, I would absolutely eviscerate, destroy you in a debate on this topic if you brought all this information and crap to the stage. If you want to go head to head on it, we can do it. Name the time and place. I will be there. But maybe you don't want to debate me either. Or is it just a destiny thing? So this claim that almost every rocket that Hamas and Hezbollah fire at Israel is a war crime, let alone how they engage in perfidy, commingling of military and civilians, hostage taking, etc. So we have mostly true here, but overboard. So, quote, almost every single rocket Hamas fires at Israel is a war crime, broadly directionally correct for the unguided rocket campaigns into Israeli population centers. But, quote, almost every single is stronger than the evidence supports. Human Rights Watch has repeatedly concluded that Hamas and other Gaza armed groups' unguided rockets fired toward Israeli cities are inherently indiscriminate in those circumstances and therefore constitute war crimes. In the May 2021 conflict, HRW specifically concluded that thousands of unguided rockets and mortars fired toward Israeli population centers violated the laws of war and amounted to war crimes. The UN Commission of Inquiry reached essentially the same conclusion regarding October 7th and its aftermath. Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups committed the war crime of intentionally attacking civilians and violated distinction by indiscriminately firing rockets and mortars toward populated areas in Israel. The underlying rule is straightforward. Attacks may only be directed at military objectives. Deliberately attacking civilians or using a weapon/method incapable of distinguishing military objectives from civilians is prohibited. So if Hamas launches an unguided Qassam type rocket at Tel Aviv, Ashkelon, Sderot, Jerusalem, etc., as a populated area, that is overwhelmingly likely to be an unlawful, indiscriminate attack and, with the requisite criminal intent, a war crime. But rocket fired by Hamas is not equal to automatically war crime by definition. If Hamas actually attacked a legitimate Israeli military objective using a weapon and method capable of discriminating sufficiently in these circumstances, attacking that military objective is not intrinsically unlawful. HRW explicitly acknowledges that military installations may lawfully be attacked, subject to distinction, proportionality, and precautions. So we should change almost every single rocket to a very large proportion of Hamas's unguided rocket attacks directed towards Israeli populated areas are indiscriminate attacks and constitute war crimes. Let me put that into the chat. Again, thank you for the super chat. I've gone through so much water today. Holy smokes. All right. Hezbollah rocket, same basic principle, but almost every is even harder to support. There's also exceptionally strong evidence of unlawful Hezbollah rocket attacks. Human Rights Watch major investigation of 2006 Lebanon war concluded that Hezbollah fired thousands of unguided rockets, repeatedly bombarded Israeli towns and cities, deliberately targeted civilians in some cases, used weapons incapable of distinguishing civilian from military targets in other populated areas, and thereby committed war crimes. So back to Hassan Piker will say he has no problem with Hezbollah. Also, Dave Farina will say it's laughable that Hezbollah is deemed a terrorist organization, but they're deemed a terrorist organization because of all the things I just read. Amnesty reached similar findings for 2024, documenting Hezbollah's use of inherently inaccurate, unguided rockets against populated Israeli areas and saying particular attacks should be investigated as likely war crimes. But HRW makes an especially important qualification. Legality has to be assessed attack by attack, of course. Okay. Well, how much have we done today? What's our live stream count at here? We're at 3 hours and 20 minutes plus plus the 7 hours we did earlier. Okay. We've done over 10 hours today. We're getting there. We're getting close to the end. We're getting there. We're getting there. I think what I'm going to do is we're going to wrap it up for today, folks. We've put in a good 10 hours today, 10 hours and 20 minutes roughly. I want to thank everyone who joined me today, and it really, really does help having you all here, sharing your energy. Someone said, what about perfidy and commingling? Oh, yeah, let's see. Here we go. Let's finish that off. They engage in perfidy. This needs much more precision. Perfidy has a specific legal meaning. It means inviting the enemy to believe that you possess protected status under IHL with the intention of betraying that protection in order to kill, injure, or capture them. Classic examples include pretending to surrender and then attacking, feigning injury, pretending to be a civilian and then attacking, improperly using protected emblems to facilitate an attack. So merely fighting without a conventional uniform does not automatically prove the war crime of perfidy. Likewise, being physically located near civilians isn't automatically perfidy. There is evidence of Palestinian attackers operating in civilian clothing. On October 7th, the UN Commission documented armed group members and participating Palestinians in civilian clothing, but the Commission's principal October 7th legal finding were murder, attacks against civilians, hostage taking, torture, cruel treatment, sexual violence, etc. It did not simply classify all such civilian clothing activity as perfidy. To establish perfidy in an individual incident, you'd ideally show something like fighter deliberately presented himself as a protected civilian, then the enemy relied upon that protected status, then the fighter used that deception to kill, injure, or capture. So Hamas has engaged in conduct capable of constituting perfidy, defensible with incident-specific evidence. Quote, Hamas generally commits perfidy because its fighters mingle with civilians. That's legally sloppy. So we want to treat these on a case-by-case basis. Quote, commingling of military and civilians. This one especially needs correction. So co-location itself is not automatically a war crime. IHL requires parties to the extent feasible to avoid locating military objectives within or near densely populated areas and to take precautions to protect civilians under their control. And deliberately using civilians to shield military objectives is prohibited. But these are different categories. A, fighters happen to operate in an urban environment, not automatically unlawful. B, weapons are unnecessarily stored/fired near civilians without feasible precautions. Potential violation of the duty to protect civilians. Remember, we did have arms found under Al Shifa. Civilians are deliberately positioned or kept there specifically to deter enemy attack. Human shielding, prohibited and potentially a war crime. HRW's investigation of Hezbollah illustrates this distinction perfectly. It found some instances in which Hezbollah stored weapons in civilian homes or fired from populated areas, violating precautionary duties, but found far less evidence of deliberate human shielding than Israeli officials allege. The UN's latest comprehensive report on Gaza similarly refers cautiously to concerns over allegations of co-location of military objectives and civilians potentially to prevent the targeting of those objectives, rather than asserting that every instance of co-location proves human shielding. So there we go. Thank you, everybody, for being with me here today. It was a lot of information to go through. I think Dave has been a little more careful with the information. He's still getting a lot of just facts blatantly wrong, still spreading a lot of misinformation, but I feel like he's trying to make some corrections here, but not enough. Still a buttload of misinformation and just like tons of infantile personal attacks and things like that. But yeah, we will get through the rest of this tomorrow. I hope you can join me for tomorrow's live stream. I'll probably be live at around midday Oaxaca time. Maybe around 1 Eastern time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, something like that. I hope you guys join the Pangburn Discord server if you're not a member yet. I would love that. It's a place where the community hangs out. Not everyone agrees on everything there. There's a lot of disagreement going on the Discord server, but we just demand that you engage in a good faith, helpful way. Those are the governing laws. Those are the laws of the land. Here's the Discord server link. Truly, I really appreciate all of your support. And yes, I support any kind of fact-checking venture. And I would love to see a culture of fact-checking take hold. Not just fact-checking the things you disagree with, but fact-checking all of the information. You'll notice today, I was also fact-checking the things about Destiny that came up. And the things that would be considered pro-Israel. Yeah, thanks, David. Thanks to everyone else. Thanks for joining. Zemo, holy shit, this is getting drug out like crazy. Well, I mean, if you look at the history of Israel-Palestine, like, we've barely scratched the surface. But yes, there's a lot of work to do with regards to this specific issue. It's become a great opportunity to teach good, sound epistemic standards in practice, how we should learn, how we should study. And I hope I'm providing a good faith, helpful effort in that regard, because that's the kind of example I want to set. But thank you, everyone, so much. Please make sure you're out there maximizing well-being for yourself and those around you. And have a good night and have sweet